Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 30th Policy Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with approval of the agenda.
I'm sorry, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And we need to do approval of open session minutes.
I move to approve the open session minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will begin with policies for second review. Policy 2-12 insurance.
Yes, good morning. This policy was before the committee at the last meeting and went to the May Board of Education meeting. I've received no feedback from any stakeholders or any revisions, and staff would ask for this to go for approval at the July 7th meeting.
I have no comments.
Do we want to do all of these at one time and roll on to 2-14?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Payroll deductions.
2-14 came before the policy committee at the last meeting, went to the board at the May meeting. I've received no feedback from stakeholders, and staff would ask for this to go to the board for approval at the July 7th meeting.
Okay, if there are no comments, we'll go to 2-17 ethics and purchasing function.
Similar to the last two, this has come to the policy committee, went to the board in May. I'm sorry, in June. I've got this all wrong. I'm doing my months wrong. And we would ask for this to be approved at the July meeting.
Any comments? No? Okay, 3-2B certified employees contracts dismissal, non-renewal, and resignation.
This is the same as the last four, went to the board in June, came to you all at the last policy committee meeting in May, and I've had no comments. And we'd ask for this to be approved at the July meeting.
Okay. Last, 3-5A use of tobacco products.
Same situation as the others, and we'd ask for this to be approved at the July meeting.
Okay, board members, any questions, comments? If not, I'll accept a motion.
I move that we send policy 2-12, policy 2-14, policy 2-17, policy 3-2B, policy 3-5A to the full board for second review. Or for approval, excuse me.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, policies for first review, 3-7, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and bullying. And I guess this is for employees.
Yes, you'll see that we have the companion policy 4-7, step 4-7 on here as well. This is on here due to some regulation changes relating to Title IX and sexual harassment. There are some new requirements that under the law for how we handle sexual harassment cases. So we are recommending separating that sexual harassment from the other forms of bullying and harassment, since the requirements are very different. We're still in the process of unpacking all those requirements. So I will have a sexual harassment policy for you at the next policy committee meeting. It's been very, they're extensive and somewhat confusing to unpack. So I'm working with other attorneys across the state and the School Boards Association on developing some policies for that. So we're asking that we're going to separate those, and this one is for you first. And I think substantively the language in here is that separation piece. And if anybody has any questions, I'm glad to respond to those.
I have a question. So we have 3-7 is for employees, and then we have 4-7 for students. But embedded in the 3-7 on page 5 of 10, it refers to disciplinary, oh my word, I can't. Disciplinary consequences for students. Why is that in there? It should be in 4-7, right? And just, or do we,
Yes, what,
even in 4-7, it references employees.
yeah, back several years ago, the policy committee wanted these to be clearer and wanted them to exactly mirror each other. So that's why we did it that way. I can separate it. They were separated, and the students was only in the students piece and the employee was only in the employee piece, but we were asked to make them mirror each other, and that's why they do. So I'll handle however the board would like.
Ms. Morris,
Yes, ma'am.
can we also include racism? Because there is a difference between racism and discrimination within the title of the policy as well as a definition.
I could absolutely do that.
And the same would be applicable to the students as well. And thank you.
Sorry about that doorbell and dogs.
So Michelle, if this came from the state, why would they not have included something like that? Like racism?
I don't know why they don't have racism in theirs. The School Boards Association policy does not have that in theirs.
But we just had a conference indicating that we do not condone racism, correct? We're planning to have a committee so that our students, employees, and our community can learn more about diversity, correct?
That is correct.
In those conversations, it would include racism, discrimination, harassment, and all the information that we include within our policy.
I think it's easy to add it to it in the first paragraph. And I don't know, I missed a second, so I don't know, Candace, if you refer to this, it says the board expressly prohibits unlawful discrimination, harassment, or bullying, however motivated, directed toward any person or group, including but not limited to acts reasonably perceived as being motivated by any actual perceived differentiating characteristics such as race, color, religion, and it goes on. So I think we could add it if we wanted to here.
Okay, very good.
So would the
So Michelle will
recommendation
work on
be
that.
where it says such as race, including but not limited to racism, right in that sentence right there?
It would be, no, it would be at the beginning. It said the board expressly prohibits unlawful discrimination, harassment, bullying, or racism. I don't know where she wants to put it. I don't want to speak for Candace.
I'm asking to add it to our title.
But then it should also go in that third sentence of it as well. But where in the title do you want it to come?
It should also be included within the definitions as well as the paragraph that you're indicating that you're.
Okay.
How about prohibition against discrimination, harassment, racism, and bullying?
I'll add
Yes.
racism between harassment and bullying. Got it.
If we are just now inserting racism, I suggest that we add racism in the beginning. Racism, comma, discrimination, comma, harassment. I don't have the exact.
So put it first before discrimination. Okay,
Yes, put it first.
you got that, Michelle?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll just list it first.
And thank you.
Okay. Okay. And again, you're getting all of this from the state, right, to update our policy manual?
These, what I do when I review them is I pull the School Boards Association and several other large districts and review them and add pieces that we're missing. And this is pretty close verbatim to the one that the School Boards Association, if my recollection is correct.
Okay.
And then the other place in the definitions and throughout, Michelle, that you're gonna have to make changes with adding that.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So 3-7A and basically 4-7, or 3-7 and 4-7, since they're companion, I'm gonna add racism.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
I would say you're gonna have to do that for 3-7, 7B, 4-7, and 4-7B.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if there's no more, we can move on to 3-7B, just, racism, discrimination, harassment, and bullying complaint procedures for employees.
It's the same reason that we're revising the other. And what I think the only thing I've done in this one is to refer people to the sexual harassment. And then on page 6 of 9, we, under Title IX, there's certain requirements for providing information to both sides of the situation that are specific in federal law. It's not the same for other matters, so we've added some language to consult with the superintendent and board attorney before releasing information, so that we're sure that people are compliant with the legal requirements. But essentially, it's, again, just separating. This one may need some more tweaking down the road, but right now it's separating the legal requirements again. And 4-7B is the same thing.
Okay.
I try and put these companion policies together so that it's not confusing down the road.
Okay. If there are no comments, we'll move on to policy 3-9, personnel file.
This one came up as part of the regular review. And then when Shauna and I talked about it, there were some things, trying to think exactly what the issue was. Trying to find it. We didn't have the information about what Title I school parents are entitled to from a personnel record. The law distinguishes between a regular personnel record and the personnel record of a teacher in a Title I school, and there's additional information that they're entitled to, so we were adding that to, proposing that that be added to the policy.
Okay. If there's any comments on that one, we'll move to 3-18, staff time schedules.
This one has always been confusing as far as the teacher assistant language, and it continues to be a source of confusion for our staff. So we try to clean that up a little bit to make it a little easier to understand. We added the language of or designee when it refers to the superintendent. One of the things that we're required to do when people work overtime in the school system, we generally give them time and a half as opposed to money value of time and a half, if that makes sense, in their compensation they get. Instead of getting, if I make $10, instead of getting $15 for every hour I work overtime, we give you an extra hour and a half of leave. So it's paid that way as opposed to cash. And when you do that, you're supposed to make sure people sign that they acknowledge that that's what they're getting instead of cash.
Okay.
And so that's why we put the language in there. We have a form. It's just not been consistently used. And so we're putting it in policy, and it'll be part of our Safe Schools platform that'll roll out to employees, that they acknowledge that they understand that's the expectation. And so Shauna and I noticed that that was not being consistently done when she took over the division. So we're recommending that be fixed in policy.
Okay.
So I guess I have a question. Should we reference our teleworking policy in here, or how does that apply to all this, or doesn't it?
I was going to add that as a reference at the bottom, in the policy cross-references. But, you know, because it's somewhat different, I think that, because teleworking requires that it be upon approval of your supervisor, and then you set up that plan. I wanted to make sure people knew that it was available, but didn't want to try and mix apples and oranges and confuse people.
A reference would be great.
Got it. I'll make sure that's there.
So, Ms. Morris, will the document be updated as well? The document that the employees sign?
What we're probably going to do, since this policy now says they get a copy of this and acknowledge this, we'll replace the form with the policy.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. I should have made that clearer.
Okay, if there are any other comments, we'll move to policy 4-7, prohibition against racism, discrimination, harassment, and bullying for students.
That's the companion policy to 3-7, and I will make the same revisions unless there's anything else people want in the student version.
Right. And I guess we'll do the same for the next one, policy 4-7B, racism, discrimination, harassment, and bullying complaint procedures for students.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, board members, do you have any comments regarding the students' work papers? Okay, I will take a motion to take that. Will we take that to the board for first review, or
Yes,
just put? Okay.
Do you want me to move
Yeah.
for all? Okay. I move that we send policy 3-7, 3-7B, 3-9, 3-18, 4-7, and 4-7B as amended to the full board for first review.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. That brings us to administrative guidelines for review for mascot selection for policy 1-33, naming schools and school facilities.
Yes, this administrative guideline is completely new. It was drafted at the request of the board and the administration. I took what was the naming of school facilities format and that administrative guideline and tried to make that into this. So you can see a lot of the language is almost verbatim, and the process is the same. Really, the only completely new piece is the part about when the first paragraph under procedures is when a new school is being opened, the process for the proposed process for selecting a mascot. And then in the naming of facilities, the recommendation, goes to the facilities committee, but it made more sense for this to go to SPTT in my conversation with Mrs. Merrill. So we changed the policy or the committee that would review this.
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
The second full paragraph is currently in the administrative guideline to 1-33. So are we going to remove it from there or leave it in both places? So that's my first question.
The proposal was to leave it in both places.
My second question, in procedures, can you break it up with some sort of header between new school mascot and existing school mascot? The last sentence of the procedures of the new school mascot is presented to the board and then, or it's presented to the superintendent and then shared with the board for final approval. You need to have that same language in the existing school mascot. Okay, and then on the mascot change request form, I'm a little bit confused. I think that an organization or a group of people can get together and propose that an existing mascot go away. Why do they have to propose a new one? We have a process for proposing a new one. So I don't think that that's necessary in there. Okay, and the second thing is at the bottom, it says, please note that the evidence of broad community support for this request shall accompany this application. What does that mean? And how are they supposed to prove evidence of broad community support? I don't know.
Well, the only thing I could think of for that is like if there was going to be a community survey, a student vote, or some kind of public meeting.
Right, but some of that stuff is in, when somebody requests it on the first page, some of that is already in there, that they survey people, that they put forth a committee and do all that stuff. But I don't know what threshold a group or people who don't like a mascot at the school for whatever reason, what does that mean? You have to have broad support to ask for it to be changed?
That's just the process we use for the naming of the facility, so we were leaving it the same process. I can take that out.
Do we want you? Should we
Just
take
for
that
clarity,
out?
we're on the policy, correct?
I'm sorry, Candace.
So just for clarity, I'm flipping back and forth looking at the policy as well as the form. So Kathy, you're referring to the policy, not the actual form.
To the new administrative guideline.
Okay.
There's a new,
So let's be real clear. So since 2002, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, since 2002, we have had policy 1-33, naming of schools and school facilities. This has
Correct.
been an existing policy since October 1st, 2002, and it has been revised in 2007, 2014, 2016, and General Counsel reviewed this again in 2018. So this 1-33 for facilities is a policy.
Correct. And the reason I'm sorry.
And so this administrative guideline that's in red is a completely new administrative guideline for mascots within this existing policy.
Correct.
Because we've never had any guidelines or policies for mascots.
Correct.
So this is a new introduction to go into 133.
Correct. And the reason that 133 is in your packet is because previously you asked when we were doing administrative guideline to attach the policy so you knew where it was. There's no proposed revisions to the policy whatsoever. It's just
Right.
there for your reference. Correct.
I guess my question is not to take out broad community support, but to say what that means. But you're telling me that it's the exact wording from the school naming?
I think I took the form, pretty much, that's in the form, yes, the other
Okay.
form. Now, that may not be the same in this situation. I just was trying to get a basis for which to begin the discussion.
Yeah, to give us something to work off of. Yeah.
Correct.
So board members, what do we want that in there, or do we want to, discuss thresholds, or do we think that that's even necessary?
I like it in there. I think, like Kathy said, maybe define what it means a little better.
Right. So that there's no gray area.
Right.
Or at the least, maybe give some examples of what types of evidence would look like.
Mm-hmm.
It could be meeting agendas, it could be petitions, it could be votes. I mean, whatever, just some different examples maybe of what that would be.
And I also agree with Kathy as far as changing what the mascot should be changed to.
Should I change it? Should I take it out completely or put a statement that there's no requirement that there be a proposed mascot? That way, if they have one, they can put it. If they don't need to.
Or
That's a
just
good
put a check mark, yes, no. I don't know. What do you think, Kat?
I think she could put an asterisk and say that doesn't have to be filled in.
Not required or something like that?
Because on the first page, it gives this if for requesting a change, the person requesting the change shall complete it, and then once completed, submitted to the superintendent, who then refers it to the principal, who then develops a committee to discuss it. And it says who the committee is made up of, and they survey the stakeholders, and they consider the results of the survey, and then the school level committee makes a recommendation to the superintendent, who then would make a recommendation to the full board for the new, if there is a new mascot.
So are we also including what type of mascots we prohibit? Because the community members are questioning what type of mascots.
I think that's in policy 1-33.
It's also in the new guideline. It talks
Yeah.
It's the second paragraph.
the second full paragraph.
You want to read that out loud, Michelle?
All mascots, nicknames, and descriptors, including symbols, banners, flags, pennants, or similar identifiers used by a school sport team, extracurricular clubs, curricular clubs, or organizations shall respect cultural differences and values. The board prohibits the use of any race or ethnic group as a mascot or nickname.
Thank you.
And is that also in the actual policy for naming of schools and facilities as well? Did that language come from there?
It is not.
Comes from the administrative guidelines to the policy on the process for naming the facilities.
Okay, gotcha.
And I can't recall, I may have added mascot because that may not have been in the naming of facilities piece, but the substance and the board's expectation are the same.
Okay. Okay, I do like Kathy's recommendation for procedures. I think it should be broken out procedures for new schools, and then procedures for existing or current schools.
Yeah, I've put a bullet and it then titled the paragraph new school mascot, and then another bullet existing school mascot.
Okay, so the process that we have here, takes, multiple channels to work its way from the school to the superintendent to the board. Is there any thoughts from the board members under please note or anything, if there's a sense of urgency that that this needs to be expedited for any manner or timeline, so that this doesn't drag out over months and months and months?
So you mean within what, I think what you're trying to, maybe I'm wrong, but what you're trying to do is we should put an amount of time that this committee has to make a recommendation.
I think so, because
And I assume that they will move quickly because they're gonna want to have a new to replace the mascot with a new one. So, but I can understand. I mean, we could give it a month or what, I don't know.
I was just thinking, if there was somewhere like maybe above evidence of broad community support or somewhere in there that, we'll just go ahead and address Parkwood. We've gotten, a handful of complaints and emails out of the Parkwood cluster. I think it's important for us to be consistent in our administrative guidelines as far as, working from, the site-based team, the principal, the students, the superintendent, and the recommendation from the board. But I think in some instances, there needs to be a sense of urgency that, that this doesn't drag out for a whole semester or a whole year.
And I guess I was referring to it on the first page of the.
Oh, okay, the first page.
where it talks about, in the last paragraph, where it talks about this committee that they have to put together, what the committee has to do, and then they make a recommendation. I assume you would want to put in there a timeline to get that done, but we have to take into account that they have to form the committee, they have to do a survey of stakeholders, and then make a recommendation. So I think if we are thinking about a timeline to get this accomplished, it has to be in that paragraph.
Okay.
Do you disagree?
No, I'm looking for feedback because
I know,
think there's some instances where, you know, we can't let this go on and on forever. Todd, Candace, any thoughts? Okay.
I mean,
And you know, we're kind of in a predicament right now because we don't even have, you know, we don't even know if we're going to have students in the school right now. So at some point, you know, if we don't have students in the school and principals aren't in a position to work with their students.
well, you raise a good thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
there's no students on this committee. I think there should be students. on it.
Absolutely, there have to be students. Good catch, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have it in the first part, the new school. I missed it in the second.
Okay.
Yeah, Melissa, I agree with what you're saying. As far as the time, I don't know if maybe we should have a box or a checkbox. You know, why are we requesting the change? Is it for, you know, we just changing the mascot to change the mascot, or is there an underlying reason that may
Mhm.
give it more urgency to act on?
On the form, it does say the reason for the request is, and then you have to give the reason why they're asking for the change in the mascot.
I guess the question would be, you know, at what point will we get this request form? Once, you know, if these people, you know, who's requesting it takes 30 or 60 days to get this form to staff, you know, do we get it in the next board meeting? 30 days, 60 days?
Yeah, I think like a 30, 60, 90, maybe, I mean, just throwing that out there. You know, what are your thoughts on, you know, having like a 30, 60, 90?
I guess my question is for Drew, is how, and Michelle, how fast can this get done at a school level? I mean, it could take a couple meetings of this committee, and a survey would probably be out there for a week, and they have to come back with the results of the survey, and the committee has to discuss it. So I can't see that happening less than 30 days, right?
Right.
Right, I agree with that. I would say if there's a way to maybe put a window of something that says to not exceed 60 days in terms of the cap for how long this process would take. I think that, you know, going back to the Parkwood situation, we're unique right now in a lot of ways because, you know, teachers are not working, they're off contract, students are not in session. So the ability to bring people together and to even get them to complete surveys, et cetera, during the summer months may be a bit of a challenge. But I think that working with the principal in that situation, that would move as quickly as they can in developing this and following the process. But I kind of immediately went to you know, just as an idea that this process not to exceed 60 days from the day that we received the request form, just as a thought.
I like that.
Or how about 45?
I could do 45 as well. I think that,
like that even better.
Yeah.
45 better. 30 seems short to me, 60 seems long, so split.
Okay, I like that, Kathy.
Now, just for clarification, do we want 45 days for the entire process or 45 days for the school process? And then I can put the recommendation to the SBTT for their next meeting, who will then forward to the board at their next meeting.
Mhm.
That way,
Right.
I just worry about meeting schedules and
Right.
things.
I mean it for the school level committee.
Okay,
yeah, I was going to jump to 45 days for the school process.
got it.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I just need clarification.
Not to exceed 45 is what we want to say.
So, Okay.
Now, I would also recommend if you all will consider, do we want to have a clarifying statement that, I always refer back to extenuating circumstances, that, that the 45-day cap may be extended upon permission or request due to extenuating circumstances, because you just don't know how that will go. And I don't want to say that at the end of the 45 days, you're completely cut off from this process. So I would like for maybe some consideration of principal makes a request to the superintendent to extend the 45-day window, but has to validate extenuating circumstances. I don't know, just for
I'm good with
consideration.
that. I think that's a good recommendation.
Do we need that in the policy?
I was referring to that in the guidelines, not
I mean,
really the.
we need that in the guidelines. I just don't think we need it. But
I mean, if we don't need it and that ever were to happen, I can certainly come back to the SPIT committee or policy to let you all know, hey, we need a little bit more time as an information item. I mean, you can handle it in one of two ways, I guess. I just, given the state of uncertainty, I just wonder, I wouldn't want to just say, well, you didn't meet the deadline, you can't go down this road. If they still want to, but they need a little bit more time, we just
I
need to
mean,
evaluate that.
I think the SPIT committee and the full board would understand if there was an extenuating circumstance.
Okay, just wanted to raise it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Uh-huh. Under evidence of broad community support, should we have like lines where the applicants can list out what they're supplying for the evidence? Should there be like lines or something under that to show so that they could list what their attachments or their documents are going to be?
and I think Michelle was going to put some examples of what we mean by evidence.
Yeah, examples, but I'm assuming they're not just going to turn in one page of information, and I didn't know if the applicants should list what their supporting documents are, like, emails, petitions,
Or like your research as well.
yeah,
Okay.
like supporting documents
Oh, that's
or attachments. You know how like when you have a letter, you put down at the bottom what your attachments are.
Mhm.
And I think the applicant should be able to have like lines or something to be able to show what their supporting evidence or attached documents are. That way, when it goes to committee or goes to the full board, if one of those pieces are missing along the way, hopefully we would catch it and say, hey, where's this piece of paper? I didn't get it. Okay. Are there,
Did you want me to add language that that the evidence of broad community support is not a required piece, but if it's available, attach that. Examples are email, surveys, research, and then put some spaces. Does that?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I think. I'll defer to everyone else's opinion.
I agree. So the attached attached documents are not a requirement, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If available.
Yep. Just supporting evidence. Let's see. Does anyone else have any more comments? I mean, I just want to say over the last month, I have gotten, a handful of emails or complaints out of the Parkwood cluster. And Parkwood was built, in 1960, but I don't know the historical. Unfortunately, I'm not from Union County, so I don't know. I know the building was constructed in 1960 or opened in 1960, but I don't know if there was a Parkwood school prior to that. But, you know, I've gotten complaints. Has anyone else gotten any emails, phone calls, or complaints?
Yes.
I have not.
I have, but for Forest
Okay.
Hills.
I'm
Out
sorry.
of Forest Hills? Candace. Oh, I lost her.
Here.
Okay, you're back. Where did you say you got your complaints from, Candace?
I received one complaint from Forest Hills in regards to the mascot.
What?
And some racism in regards to the mascot.
For the Forest Hills Yellow Jackets?
Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
received
Okay.
You didn't receive anything from about Parkwood?
Not that I believe Piedmont,
Okay.
and I think I believe I forwarded that email to you all.
Okay. And this was about mascots like the Piedmont Panther and the Forest
In
Hills.
regards to the mascot.
Okay.
There's racial discrimination in regards to the mascots.
Okay. I don't think I've gotten anything on the Piedmont Panthers or the Forest Hills High School. So if you want to share that with us, just let us know. I'm not familiar with those. I'd like to hear.
I'll make sure
Thank
I do that.
I also think that our new committee, Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity, could take up this discussion as well with respect to our mascots in Union County Public Schools.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Wait, what did you say, Candace? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so let me get back to the agenda. So for the administrative guidelines, we will send that to the full board just as an administrative guideline, or okay, at the July meeting.
Correct, yep.
Okay, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is it July 9th? Is not the 9th our next meeting because of the holiday?
Oh, I keep thinking the 7th, am I wrong?
Okay, then we,
And the 7th as well.
the 7th, okay.
Is that
July
correct?
7th.
We always go to the Thursday after a holiday weekend.
Okay,
I'm fine with either day.
yeah, I needed to clarify because I didn't know whether it was the Thursday. I don't know why I thought it might have been the 9th. We can get with Donna.
So what day is it? Are we staying? Do you have the list? Anybody with you?
I don't have the list with me.
I don't have the list, but I just know on my calendar it says the 7th.
Okay, your calendar says the 7th. Okay.
Yeah.
Calendar says the 7th as well.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect, thank you.
I truly was just asking what is the date. I wasn't trying to change it. Okay, so we're going to take that to the full board. So action items to be taken to the July 7th meeting are going to be policy 2-12, 2-14, 2-17, 3-2B, 3-5A for second review. And then for first review, 3-7, 3-7B, 3-9, 3-18, 4-7, and 4-7B, and then the administrative guideline for the full board's review in July. Our next meeting, if you want to put this in your calendars, Michelle's really good about sending this out, but if you want to go ahead and mark July 22nd at 9 o'clock. And I think the board's intent is to transition to in-person meetings by that date, but we'll play it by ear and see what, you know, how everything is going with by that time. But I think the board's intent is to start transitioning back to in-person. So just make a note of that, July 22nd. And if there are no other comments or questions, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good day.